Everyone's scared of the wrong sharks. You know the ones. The great whites leaping out of the water in slow motion, bull sharks terrorizing river mouths, tiger sharks chewing on license plates like they're breath mints. But here's the thing. Those are the Instagram sharks. The PR department, the splashy, surface-level scream machines. The real nightmare fuel? It's down there. Way, way down there. Because once you leave the sunny, selfie-friendly shallows and start heading into the deep, things start getting weird. The water turns black. The pressure climbs like a debt collector, and the sharks? Oh, they get strange, ancient, alien. Some of them glow. Some of them move slower than your grandma's dial-up. And some of them have jaws that shoot out of their faces like spring-loaded bear traps. And here's the thing. The deeper you go, the older they get. Evolution doesn't mess with these things anymore. It doesn't need to. They've been perfect horror shows for millions of years. Let's start at the top. Literally. Welcome to the epipelagic zone, the top 200 meters of ocean where sunlight still reaches, fish have decent social lives, and most of your favorite sharks are busy being famous. This is prime time territory. And if sharks had agents, the ones living up here would be doing toothpaste commercials and dating supermodels. We've got great whites, hammerheads, tiger sharks, bull sharks, oceanic white tips, basically the Shark Week VIP list. These are the species that headline documentaries, inspire movie villains, and occasionally nibble on swimmers with tragic consequences and international press coverage. They're built for speed, stealth, and showmanship. Great whites, for example, are apex predators with a bite force that could crumple a bowling ball. They can detect a single drop of blood from hundreds of meters away. And when they breach the surface in pursuit of seals, it's like watching a missile made of teeth. Terrifying? Absolutely. But in a kind of elegant ESPN highlight reel way. Tiger sharks, on the other hand, are less picky. Their nickname is the garbage cans of the sea, and it's well earned. Inside their stomachs, scientists have found birds, shoes, tires, and even a full-grown horse's leg. These aren't just predators, they're oceanic hoarders with no sense of culinary boundaries. Then you've got bull sharks, who just said, screw it, and took their murder skills into fresh water. These guys swim up rivers, into lakes, and have been found thousands of kilometers from the ocean. They're grumpy, territorial, and responsible for a disproportionate number of attacks on humans. Mostly because they're not picky about where they pick a fight. All of these sharks are relatively well-lit, well-studied, and, for lack of a better word, normal. They have the decency to resemble something you might find in a marine biology textbook. Streamlined, functional, terrifying in a way we understand. But that's just the surface layer. These sharks are flashy, dangerous, and surprisingly photogenic. They've dominated popular culture and coastal ecosystems for millions of years. But when you really think about it, they're the daytime talk show guests of the shark world. Because once the sun starts fading and you go below that bright blue veneer, things start to spiral into darkness. Literally and evolutionarily. Below 200 meters, you're entering another realm entirely. One where the sharks don't care about sunlight or humans or camera angles. They're older, weirder, and somehow much, much creepier. Descend past 200 meters, and you're officially out of the ocean's comfort zone. Sunlight fades fast. The water goes from blue to black in minutes. And down here, in what scientists call the mesopelagic or twilight zone, sharks start to get unsettling. Let's start with the cookie cutter shark. Cute name, horrifying hobby. This little guy, barely 20 inches long, doesn't kill its prey outright. No, it prefers precision vandalism, It swims up to much larger animals like whales, tuna, dolphins, even submarines. Yes, really. Latches on with its suction cup mouth, spins like a drill bit, and scoops out a perfectly round plug of flesh. A literal living melon baller. What it lacks in size, it makes up for in sheer pettiness. And then there's the blunt-nosed six-gill shark. Imagine if someone stretched out a normal shark to 15 feet, gave it prehistoric gills from a time before dinosaurs, and told it to live like a submarine. These things are living fossils. They descend to over 2,500 meters, but cruise into the twilight zone to feed. Unlike the high-energy surface predators, six-gills are slow, silent, and unsettlingly chill. They're the shark equivalent of a hitman who prefers to work nights and never shows up on security cameras. Another member of this deepening nightmare cast, the Pacific sleeper shark. It's massive, sluggish, and built like a drifting log full of teeth. Found as deep as 2,000 meters, this shark is believed to be one of the slowest swimming large predators in the world. Possibly slower than the things it eats. It's like it weaponized apathy. Scientists still aren't sure how it catches seals, but the bite marks prove it does. Probably while they're sleeping. Which is deeply ironic, given its name. What makes these mid-depth sharks even creepier is the uncertainty. The mesopelagic zone is hard to study. It's too deep for divers, too shallow for most submersibles, and too vast for consistent surveillance. We only know about some of these sharks because they occasionally drift upward at night in a phenomenon called deal vertical migration, like weird, fishy ghosts with a work commute. And unlike their surface cousins, these sharks rarely breach or attack humans. They don't need attention. They're not interested in media deals or scare tactics. Their lives are defined by patience, pressure, and darkness. Many of them have glowing organs, photophores, underslung jaws, and eyes that reflect light like the pupils of a demon cat. What unites these twilight sharks isn't just their habitat, it's their vibe. They're the introverts of the shark world, quiet, unpredictable, unbothered by your existence. But somehow that makes them worse. Because a great white? At least you see it coming. These guys? You never even know they were there. Until a chunk of your flesh is missing, or your camera mysteriously stops working. Down here, subtle is scary. Now we're diving into the deep, deep. The bathypelagic zone. Between 1,000 and 4,000 meters below the surface, this is the part of the ocean where light officially gives up. The pressure is soul-crushing, and the sharks, they stop looking like anything that should be legally allowed to swim. Let's talk about the goblin shark. This thing looks like someone tried to reconstruct a shark from memory after one too many drinks. It has a long, flat snout that looks like a busted swordfish blade, and a jaw that can literally shoot forward to grab prey. Not like a little jaw extension. This is a full surprise. Here's my entire face situation. The mechanism is called slingshot feeding, and it's powered by elastic ligaments in its head. Imagine a deep-sea vacuum cleaner with teeth, flinging its mouth out like a horror movie jump scare. There's video. It's disturbing. Goblin sharks are rarely seen alive. They're slow, soft-bodied, and basically blind. But they're also ancient. Fossil records trace their lineage back 125 million years. That's mid-Cretaceous, rubbing elbows with Spinosaurus and early tyrannosaurs. In other words, this shark has outlived empires, asteroid strikes, and several fashion trends. And then there's the frilled shark, which doesn't look like a shark at all. Think, a demon eel with a mouth full of backward-facing needle teeth. It has over 300 of them, arranged in neat little rows like something you'd see in a nightmare dentist's office. When it hunts, it lunges like a snake, swallowing prey whole in a slow, constrictor-like motion. It's been called a living fossil because it hasn't changed much since the Jurassic, around 150 million years ago, and honestly, it looks the part. These sharks are all built for a very specific purpose: surviving in a cold black pressure cooker where food is rare and sunlight is a myth. Their metabolisms are glacial, their movements are minimal, and their appearances straight out of the paleo horror section of nature's design book. Because evolution down here doesn't reward flash. It rewards efficiency, silence, and the ability to go months without a meal. Deep-sea sharks tend to have soft skeletons, oversized livers full of oil to help with buoyancy, and sensory systems tuned to the faintest flicker of movement or smell. They're basically floating nightmare blimps with uncanny patience. And unlike their shallower cousins, these sharks don't do quick kills. They ambush, they stalk, they wait until you're slow, weak, or distracted, and then they act like they were never there in the first place. The weirdest part? Some of these sharks look exactly like their fossil ancestors. It's like time just stopped for them. And maybe that's what makes them so disturbing. They're relics, not just of deep time, but of a version of Earth that no longer exists on the surface. Every encounter we've had with them, every trawled-up specimen, every blurry ROV clip, feels like watching a ghost from a prehistoric ocean. Somehow still alive, and still hungry. And yet we've barely scratched the surface of how strange it gets. Because believe it or not, some sharks live even deeper. Or at least, we think they do. By now, you're well into the abyss. Down past 4,000 meters, into a zone so pressure-dense and lightless, it might as well be solid. Officially, it's the abyss opelagic, 4,000 to 6,000 meters, or even the Hadal zone, 6,000 meters plus. And while most sharks don't venture this deep, a few hardy lineages skirt its edges, and rumors persist of more extreme deep-sea shark-like creatures waiting in the dark. The Greenland shark and Pacific sleeper shark have both been documented at surprising depths, sometimes beyond 4,000 meters. These aren't deep zone specialists, but they're resilient generalists, cruising both deep and shallower waters. Their bodies are built for endurance. Extremely slow metabolisms, massive oil-filled livers for buoyancy, and those ancient, sluggish anatomies. They're so indifferent to time and space that some researchers believe a Greenland shark could live more than 400 years. That's not a lifespan. That's a horror saga starring wrinkles and molasses pace. But true abyssal sharks? We don't really know. Some video footage and trawl records hint at filmy, eel-like chondrichthyans lurking at 5,000 to 6,000 meters. Creatures with long gill slits, tiny eyes, strange bioluminescent patches. Yet these sightings are so rare and grainy that they belong more to rumor than catalog. Still, given how underexplored these zones remain, paleontologists and marine biologists suspect entire shark lineages might live yet completely undescribed lives down there. And here's why that's disturbingly exciting. Life in the Hadal zone evolves slowly, with few predators or reasons to change. Deep-sea environments remain virtually unchanged over geological time. So any species that manages to get a foothold tends to stick around. That means any real abyss-opelagic sharks we discover will probably look even older than goblins or frills, ancient, armored, maybe even glowing. Our understanding is so limited because exploring beyond 4,000 or 5,000 meters is brutal. ROVs need thick armor, sampling is laborious, and capturing video is rare. But with each expedition that probes deeper trenches, we find not just weird fish, but entirely unexpected morphologies, like lanternfishes with giant upward-facing mouths, shrimp that shrink to half-size, ghostly cephalopods. And sharks? They're the apex demons behind that unseen chaos. So when people joke that sharks can't go that deep, they're mostly referring to species we already know. six gills, Greenland sharks, and the occasional sleeper. But for all we truly don't know, the abyss is more rumor, myth, and speculation than it is catalog. And the speculation is wild. Jaws full of needle teeth arranged in spindle rows, elongated bodies covered in sensors, ultra-black skins that absorb the faintest glimmers of light like holes in the ocean. In short, we've barely seen the abyssal shark world, even the fringes. Sure, surface sharks dominate our nightmares because we see them, but true deep ghosts, that's where the real horrifying unknowns hide. And until we shine more light, pun fully intended, we're mostly guessing what shape those nightmares take. Ever notice how the deeper the shark, the more it looks like a rejected Pokemon design from the Devonian? There's a reason for that, and it's not just bad lighting. Deep sea sharks tend to look ancient because they are ancient. Not just in age, but in evolutionary blueprint. These creatures are essentially time capsules, floating around in the present while rocking a style that hasn't changed since before birds figured out how to be dinosaurs with feathers. Take the frilled shark again. It hasn't updated its look since the Jurassic. That's around 150 million years of no thanks, evolution, I'm good. And it works. The deep sea doesn't demand change the way surface ecosystems do. Up top, everything's fast-paced. Changing temperatures, shifting currents, rapidly evolving prey and predators. Down below, it's dark, cold, and weirdly stable. It's the Silicon Valley of evolutionary stagnation. Slow changes, long development cycles. But once something works, it really sticks. This is where we run into the concept of evolutionary conservatism. In hostile but stable environments like the bathypelagic zone, successful designs just persist. If a body plan works in the crushing dark, there's no selective pressure to reinvent it. That's why some deep-sea sharks, like those in the Hexantiformes order, have been haunting the oceans since the Permian over 250 million years ago. That's before Pangea broke up. Before trees had bark. Before anything had the decency to invent flowers. You also see it in their physiology. Modern surface sharks are optimized for fast bursts of speed, high metabolism, and short lifespans, relatively speaking. Deep sea sharks? They're the opposite. Low energy, long-lived, and borderline undead. Greenland sharks grow slower than paint dries and might not reach sexual maturity until they're 150. That's a century and a half of sulking in the cold before you even get a first date. This long life strategy, combined with low reproduction rates and a metabolism that makes sloths look hyperactive, is ideal for the deep sea. But it's also what makes these sharks incredibly vulnerable to overfishing. Catch one, and you might have just wiped out a creature older than the Eiffel Tower. The ancient vibe isn't just skin deep either. Genetic studies show that deep-sea sharks often retain primitive traits lost in shallower species. Extra gill slits, simplified cartilage structures, and weirdly outdated immune systems. It's like their DNA hit pause somewhere between trilobites and Tyrannosaurus and just stayed there, sipping oil-rich liver soup in the black void. And in a way, it makes sense. These sharks aren't built for change, they're built to endure. When meteors strike, continents shift, and oceans acidify, these are the creatures that shrug and keep swimming. They're not just survivors, they're monuments. Living fossils in the least metaphorical way possible. Let's clear up a common misconception. Just because a shark lives in the dark doesn't mean it's harmless. Sure, deep-sea sharks aren't exactly lunging at surfers or photobombing scuba divers. They're not smashing into cages or chasing drones through coral reefs. But don't confuse that with weakness. These creatures aren't less deadly, they're just not interested in you. Down in the deep, the rules of survival flip. There's no room for flashy ambushes or high-speed chases. Down here, it's all about patience, silence, and inevitability. Think less Jaws and more slow-motion horror film that never ends. The predators of the abyss don't need to be fast. They just need to be the last ones moving. Let's go back to the Pacific sleeper shark. It's a hulking, slow-motion cryptid with flesh that smells like ammonia and a metabolism so slow it could probably sneak up on a boulder. And yet it regularly eats fast, agile prey like squid and seals. How? Either it's playing some long game of ambush tag or it's catching them while they sleep. A silent predator gliding through pitch-black water like an underwater Grim Reaper. You're not getting a fight scene. You're just gone. Same deal with Greenland sharks. They might live for 400 years, but they're not just drifting. These sharks have been found with the remains of polar bears, reindeer, and seals in their stomachs. That means either those animals fell in the water and got unlucky, or the shark actively hunted them. Slowly, methodically, and successfully. These aren't clumsy scavengers, they're apex predators of their realm, perfectly suited to an environment that punishes excess and rewards restraint. And because of that, they're not only dangerous in their own ecosystems, they're ridiculously well adapted to outlast everything else. A great white will dominate for 60 years, maybe 70. A deep-sea shark could do that 6 times over. They don't just win fights, they win centuries. And while they're not coming for beachgoers anytime soon, they're not harmless curiosities either. They're efficient, ruthless, and terrifying in ways that are harder to see and harder to escape. They don't need your fear. They're not interested in fame. They're not even aware you exist. But if you were down there, in their world, you wouldn't make it 10 minutes. Because while we've spent generations studying surface sharks, tagging them, tracking them, making movies about them, the deep ones have stayed quiet, undiscovered, undisturbed, and still hungry. And maybe that's the scariest thing of all. Not the teeth, not the eyes, not even the jaws that launch out of skulls like chest bursters. The scariest thing is that they don't care about being scary. They just are.